Hello, I am Latriva Herndon, and in this assignment I have established and will communicate my Learning Manifesto as part of the requirement for the EDLD 5302 course. Education has always been an important part of my life, thanks to my mother. She was insistent that my sister and I do our best in school. My sister was the first in our family to go to a university, and she was able to attain a partial scholarship to attend college. And from her experience, I was able to see the hard work that went into being a university student. My mother worked and helped to support my sister in school, but when my mother became ill and could no longer work, my sister had to leave school to come home and help take care of my mother and I, putting her education on hold. It would be about 10 years before my sister would finish her degree, but during that time and the time that it took her to finish, I was able to witness the difficulty that she had in finding jobs that paid well to help take care of our family. Even though she'd gone to college, because she didn't have a degree, her pay was often lower. Eventually, I ended up heading off to college. The lesson for me was to finish school no matter what, so that I could have the life I wanted. I valued education, but it took me a while and much life experience to come to teaching as a career. So what am I passionate about? I believe in social equity, which is about imagining and working toward a future where all people from all communities have the access to resources and support, not only to survive, but to thrive. I have been a teacher for almost 10 years. I have long understood the realities of inequity in education, and in my time as a teacher, I have taught at schools where districts were high performing, the parents were middle and upper middle class. The resources included technology, which allowed for a one-to-one campus environment. It was great. However, I've also taught at schools where the students struggled and performed less well on standardized tests. They came from family situations where the picture was much more bleak. This school in particular had a single computer lab. There were 400 kids and 4 grades. The lab had 30 desktops. On most days, you could count on maybe 20 to 22 of them being in working condition. Students struggled to learn, and teachers struggled to teach without the proper resources. As a result of my personal experiences as an educator and as a student, I am truly passionate about equity in education. In order for people to enjoy an improved quality of life, they must have access to adequate education and educational resources. I am passionate about finding solutions to the opportunity gap, historically known as the achievement gap, which exists for communities of color in the area of education most especially. Specifically, I am passionate about the empowerment and improvement of life for Black women and girls through educational opportunities, particularly connected to technology. As a result of the historically unequal provision of education for Black women and Black people, these groups have remained underrepresented in the amount of access and services provided for the communities where they are. Black women contribute to the underrepresentation in the field of technology. However, we are among the thought leaders of campuses, districts, and educational organizations around the country. I am interested in hearing the voices of Black women representing the needs of Black women and girls in education through our increased presence in the field of ed tech. After working in schools with such differing degrees of access to basic resources, to include technology, I'm reminded of the quote from Shift Happens, where Carl Fish and Scott McCloud explain that we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist yet, using technologies that haven't been invented, in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. Staring this reality in the face for my students is how my passion developed. We are doing students an absolute disservice if we are teaching them in schools that do not adequately equip them for the future that lies ahead of them. Technology access and use is an essential part of that preparation. Seth Godin posed the question, What is school for? In his TED Talk, Stop Stealing Dreams. And that is still a great guiding question as we continue to re-examine American education in an effort to reform its current state, which is built on the sole intent of training people to behave, comply, and fit in, making them easy to control. If we're going to align the outcomes of education with what we say we value, we have to stop basing them on compliance. We need to measure outcomes based on the experience of the student and the resultant application of what was learned. Emerging issues also tie back to equity. There is continued inequity and inadequate access to infrastructure, including devices and access points, for campuses and districts. In addition, inadequate teacher training for the use of technology in classrooms also serves as a barrier to educational progress for students. Both of these issues contribute to the widening of the digital divide. The digital divide refers to the inequality in access to technology that exists between communities due to regional and demographic differences, particularly socioeconomic groups. The reality is that if students are not engaging with technology in the classroom, their ability to interact with it in meaningful ways will be limited. If the students can't access the technology and they don't know how to use it to help them creatively solve problems or enhance their learning, how do they become competitive in our globally developing society? Also, if their teachers are not sufficiently trained to use technology in class, they are unable to use the technology instructionally and model the important tool that technology can be when it comes to its application and its usefulness. This is evidenced in classes where teachers may have been given technology such as iPads or Chromebooks. However, the devices sit unused or are mainly used as a reward system incentives for students to play games that are not academically related to their growth. These teachers have not been empowered with the knowledge or the training on some of the powerful, relevant, and beneficial tech platforms that can be used in their classrooms, provided by groups like Microsoft, Google, and Apple. They all have wonderful applications that are designed for classroom use. What is wrong in education? One of the major problems is disparate funding for districts and schools. State and federal funding is largely dependent on student scores rather than the needs of each campus. This method of funding only serves to perpetuate the problem that causes students from lower performing schools to fall further behind. This problem also causes teachers with the skills and training who are able to integrate technology to avoid positions that possibly come available at lower performing schools because those schools don't offer the access to infrastructure or they don't support their level of expertise, and potentially their own professional growth is impacted. Due to the idea of ed reform, organizations and individuals have begun to look at changing the approach to education in America. It is the responsibility of businesses and government and citizens to reform our education system. It has been realized that the one-size-fits-all and industrialized approach to education is causing us to fall further and further behind as a country. While there is much growth to make, it is promising to see that there are schools such as that there are schools who are using flexible types of education, such as public online schools, as well as the development of specialty schools like STEAM and STEM schools. It is also encouraging to see the number of teachers who are actively seeking technology training so that they can make their classrooms into learning centers that are truly committed to helping students learn and grow in ways that are meaningful to them. My core belief is that there should be liberation through education. Learning and knowledge should be accessible to everyone, and everyone needs to be represented throughout all areas of education. There remains a huge disparity in the representation of people in color and women in the technology fields. It is necessary that their voices are part of the education conversation as it relates to technology access, because the needs of their communities are the ones we need to focus on meeting if we are to attain equity in education and offer everyone a proper chance to use education as a tool to create a better life for themselves. If we are truly going to provide an equitable education for all learners, we must provide them with trained educators, with access to technology, and the opportunity to use it to create meaning from what they are learning. If students from underprivileged and underrepresented communities are to be truly college and career ready, they should have the opportunity to advocate for their needs, and they should have access to the governments, organizations, and influencers who have the privilege and means to help make meaningful change and have those needs met. These are the sources used for this project.